Hi everyone, my name is Janelle Maloney. I'm an author and historian, and usually I'm a vegetarian with the occasional fish. But I was writing a book called Birds Gone Wild, and that was all about Arizona's ostrich ranching industry from boom to bust. And I thought, I should probably taste a little ostrich meat for research, right? And I can now tell you, it is one of the best, most delicious steaks I've ever had in my life. And I made it at home. I'm actually showing you right now. This is me completely guessing. And I had a little help from my husband, who is a hunter, and he's much more familiar with cooking steaks and such. And so I'm not in my A game. I asked the hubby for help. Right now I'm creating a marinade for the ostrich meat to soak in. I've got garlic, soy sauce, lemon juice. Oh, and a little bit of sesame oil. Although we did use butter to baste the meat in the fry pan. But the sesame oil is really good for that soaking, marinating experience. Already, my kitchen smelled amazing at this point. I love making this marinade. If anyone's wondering what the buzz in the background is, those are the cicadas that visit us here in Arizona during the monsoon season. And since there's so many windows around my kitchen, you can hear them. They're really loud all the time. Oh yeah, I added cilantro. I remember that. The cilantro and the lemon, of course, there's going to be a little salt and pepper added to that as well. Really just brighten up the natural flavor of the ostrich meat. Ostrich meat is an experience. So I would compare that to when you have an oyster, you don't want to over-season an oyster. You want to taste and experience the oyster. The same thing goes for high-quality sushi. Maybe just a spritz of lemon and some salt, maybe, if that, or nothing. You want to experience the flavor of that specific meat. And the same goes for ostrich. You don't want to cheat yourself of this experience. So very, very light marinade, no sauce, no glaze, just that. But of course, with any steak dinner, we're going to have vegetables and potatoes. It's a classic. I'm not a fancy cook by any means. Just doing the regular old thing here. So let me tell you how I got into ostrich ranching as a topic for a book. It kind of started as just a fascination because I was doing family history research, and I have a distant cousin who was an Arizona pioneer. Her name is Desmona Rousseau. And she, in 1914, was murdered by a stampede of ostriches. And that's really shocking, but it was amazing news. It traveled all over the country. Murdered by ostriches, right? And I thought, wow, I have to know more. So I started looking into the ostrich ranching industry in Arizona's history, and I learned that it wasn't that strange in 1914 to have ostrich ranches here. In fact, there was 49 ostrich ranches in Maricopa County in 1914. That's a lot. I also learned that by 1910, there was one ostrich for every 2 humans in the city of Phoenix alone. So I went from saying, this is crazy and this is like, where did all these crazy ostriches come from to, oh wow, this was a whole thing. This was a whole thing. And I learned that they had come to Arizona as far back as 1888. And in 1914, they were at the height of the boom, meeting, well, barely, meeting the demands of women in the fashion industry that were craving that luxurious, long, completely unmatched plume. There was nothing else like it for length and volume and the way it would flutter in the wind. And they had these feathers in their hats, pinned to their breasts, trimming their robes, trimming their baby clothes, trimming their panties, and decorating the home, of course. And it was just, I would say gaudy, but really, truly romantic, luxurious, and very, very expensive. I learned that one ostrich plume at the height of the industry could be sold for $30, which is $1,000 today. That's basically what I paid for this ostrich meat, folks. I tease. I first learned how to cook ostrich meat through personal instruction given to me by folks over at the Rooster Cogburn Ostrich Ranch down in Picacho Peak. That's halfway between Phoenix and Tucson for the Arizona folks. All right. So when I went to the Rooster Cogburn Ostrich Ranch, I was able to get an entire cut of meat. So one gigantic brick of meat. And I was smart, I think, to thaw it out a little bit and slice it into about 8-ounce steaks. Please ignore the blood going everywhere. Oh my gosh. We're going to make sure that marinade gets in there nicely. I also learned that back in the day, 1914, ostrich meat was not a thing. People weren't eating them. So if you didn't sell feathers and you had an ostrich that, was past its prime or whatever happened to it and it was time to send it on its way, that was it. There was no other use for the animal. And honestly, that makes me kind of sad because I do want to make sure that an animal is going to have their life respected, and so that everything would go to good use. Now we do that. Besides the ostrich meat, if an ostrich were to give its life, we would receive the leather from its skin. The bones are fantastic for feeding predator animals at zoos. The feathers, of course, can be used in cleaning devices like feather dusters and still in fashion industries. So think about those Victoria's Secret angels walking down the runway. Think about the parades during Carnival in Brazil. Think about all the masks and boas in New Orleans doing Mardi Gras. Now, a lot of that's chicken feather too, but the ostrich feather, so much better. Look how pretty that is. I don't know why I'm fussing with it so much. Honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. All right. Let's go ahead and let that sit for at least 10 to 15 minutes, but probably overnight would have been more ideal, or at least a couple of hours would have been more ideal, but this was still delicious. Basic veggie roasting, nothing fancy here, folks. Don't look inside my oven. I haven't cleaned it in a while. Look away. Here's one of the ostrich meat cooking tips that I received from Rooster Cogburns, and those are inside the book, Birds Gone Wild. I included that with a few extra notes and the ingredients of that marinade that I used.
frozen in the middle. So the sesame oil that's in it, instead of olive oil, sesame oil is a dressing oil, right? Mm-hmm. Not a cooking oil. So that's what's going to soak with flavor, whereas olive oil doesn't really give flavor. The sesame will do that. A lot.
It's going to get burnt off, it's going to get more flavor.
Is that what we do when we turn it though?
Doesn't matter, you can just do it now.
Maybe we save a little for the turn.
Yeah. Still be
Oh, and there's garlic in there.
Yeah, your call.
All right, I maxed out my cooking skills with this ostrich, folks. Microwave potatoes it is. Don't judge me. Also, while you're here, please click to like and subscribe to my channel, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. We nerd out with things that are history related, and sometimes it's science. And hey, this is a cooking video, but this is history too. So in 1914, just a couple of weeks after my relative was murdered by ostriches, the Pan American Ostrich Company, which is out in Avondale, it had been closing down and liquidating its stock, and folks started to try out eating ostrich meat for Thanksgiving. And they hadn't done it really before, so a lot of people didn't know how to cook it. Some people were trying to cook it like a turkey in the oven and roasting it. Some people figured out that it was more like a red meat, but it was being served up at the Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee. It was being served in the Fred Harvey houses along the railroad tracks. And folks basically had probably one of the most spectacular Thanksgiving dinners they've ever had in their lives. But back in 1914, folks really didn't eat ostrich. They didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know how to cook it. They thought it was strange, exotic. Of course, if you do end up with an ostrich, you're going to end up with a whole lot of meat. A whole lot of meat. 80 pounds, maybe 100 pounds. You gotta figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, these are all still... Yeah, these still need... Which is fine. It's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong. We just need to... But yeah, we need to... I usually try to go in here. That's still all 50. So
That's my dog Calico growling in the back. Don't ask me why, but I drained some of the liquids so that way I could start using butter. I probably should have been using butter from the start. It's a little bit thicker and the fat is going to help with the moisture levels in that meat. Ostrich meat is 98% lean. As you can see, there's no white streaks of fat. Really, we were just cooking and marinating, and barely a little bit of fats were coming out, but we're going to give it a little boost with some straight up butter and make sure that it doesn't dry out, because even with a marinade, it can still get dry on that pan, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to stay nice and juicy. If I were to do this again, I would not start with olive oil. I would definitely start with butter in that pan.
If you want, you can baste with that too a little bit. I've done that a couple times and cook through it a little bit more.
Oh, I microwaved the spice packet. Oh. Ouch.
And here's where the comments come in. I microwaved the spice packet with my potatoes, folks. Pretty sure they were fine. They came out fine. So the ostrich industry was busting as World War I was picking up. And World War I was a contributing factor to why ostrich feathers went out of favor. Actually, there's three things I'll tell you. Basically, number one, ostrich feathers were being used as a symbol of shame for men that weren't enlisting. So there were suffragists in Europe that were using this feather to publicly shame men who wouldn't enlist and go to war. And so it had an image problem. So that was one thing. So the war didn't cause it. Aggressive women did. And then there were some fashionistas in Europe that decided they didn't want to wear feathers anymore. They were more interested in ribbons, and their followers, of course, followed suit. So South Africa was sending more products over to the United States because Europe was not really buying these feathers anymore. But at the same time, that's when Pan American, the nation's largest ostrich ranch in the United States, had begun liquidating their assets. So now we've flooded the industry with extra feathers, and the ostrich company selling off its ostriches for bottom basement prices reduced the value of the ostrich itself to an extreme drop. I mean, there were ostriches that were valued at $350, and they were being sold off for $10. And then after a couple of weeks or a couple of months, they were being sold as low as $3. I saw $3. So basically the entire ostrich, not just his feathers, but the entire ostrich became worthless. And so really what destroyed the feather industry in the United States was an economic, just a bomb went off, basically, of overflooding the industry and devaluing the product. Look at that. So in 1918, there was one man who had ostriches in Phoenix, and his name was Mr. Cogdell. And he was asked by the U.S. military to provide relief to grocery stores by slaughtering his 800 ostriches. So please put ostrich meat in the grocery store so that we can send good meat, pork and beef, etc., over to our men who are serving on the front lines in Europe. And I thought that was just interesting that the ostrich meat is far more nutritious. $800 ostriches would have provided grocery stores here in Arizona 25,000 pounds of meat. So we have to keep checking these temperatures, and as you can see, 2 of these steaks are already off because my husband wanted to try a steak that was rare, and I wanted one that was a little bit more medium. Again, as a primarily tofu or just all veggie girl, I didn't want to just have a big old rare steak. I wanted something a little bit more cooked. So we're watching the temperatures. For your best experience eating ostrich meat, you want to definitely cook it and eat it on the same day. It is good the next day, and we had leftovers the next day, which was really good. But same day, that's the way to go. Only cook what you need to eat for that day, and then cook fresh again the next day. That would also be what I would do different. Look at that.
I wish we had put more of the marinade on it.
Well, and two, if you, next time we do it, do that and let it marinate for like 24 hours. But you know, it's a quick turnaround like that. It's much good.
It's light. It's supposed to be light.
Look at that stretch. Oh my gosh. So no matter that my steak is cooked to medium, ostrich meat is composed in such a way that it won't brown like a regular steak, like a beef steak. It's going to stay very red because of its molecular composition. So even though I really didn't want a rare steak, it just looked like I was eating one.
That is just the coolest thing to me, how you can just...
Yeah, you cook them. I always find the thing I've started to learn, you know, if you want to like whatever you want temperature, whatever, medium rare, medium, and you want to get to like 150, you need to take it off at like 145 because it'll continue to cook for a little bit.
I learned that from when I get sunburns.
We're just eating dinner now, folks. Enjoy the random chit chat and the delicious steak. I am editing out a few of the veggie eating bites because, you know, we want to get to the good stuff. I gotcha. Feel free to join in on the conversation. We were just talking about letting meat rest after it's been seared and how that's probably a good idea for me. I'm so fair-skinned, and I mentioned getting sunburned. After a good sunburn, I need a rest. Look at that glow. Look at those fibers.
It's really good meat.
Do you want a bite?
What made you think you need to watch Django again?
Oh, there's another Django, do you know? From like 1968 or something like that. And it's before the Civil War, and it's got a similar like partner up with the guy that you wouldn't expect to partner with. And so now that I know that there's one before, I kind of want to watch that and the other one and see how they do play off each other.
Yeah. Tarantino did do a lot of stuff to reference from the first one, if I remember correctly. Let me see.
That's why it's Django Unchained, because it's a reprisal. But they go on a killing spree too, and it sounds pretty awesome.
So getting back to Birds Gone Wild, I wrote this book in total awe and fascination of the ostrich. The more I got into this topic, the more amazing it was. And I went so far and so wide, so deep, way back in history, including just how humans and ostriches have interacted for thousands and thousands of years, all the way back to the San Kalahari people who were using ostrich eggs as dishes 88,000 years ago. And of course, they were hunting the ostrich and eating it. And one of my favorite stories from researching those people is that in their hunting techniques, sometimes they would dress up in a costume like an ostrich. So they would put feathers on, and they had a stick or some kind of tall structure that they would hold up to be, the ostrich head way up high. And they would get close. They would hunt on foot, getting close to the ostriches using their disguise. and they would strike with bow and arrow or a spear, which would be quiet, and they could really aim very, very well with those tools. But there was an occupational hazard for them because they looked like a slow, small, wonky ostrich that was not quite with the group. They would be easily picked off by lions. So I thought that was kind of funny that if you go out to hunt an ostrich, you've got to be real careful because you might actually be what ends up on someone's plate that night.
His name is Django.
I mean, how many times have you seen them open the coffin for guns?
They use that same song in this movie.
So I bet it's Django on something, and that's what you.
Has anyone else seen the original Django? Tell me what you thought. Compare the two for me. Let's chat. Well, thank you for joining me for this dining experience. Now we can say we've had ostrich meat together. We've shared lovely chats about U.S. history and talked about movies like Django and ostrich history across the world. I'm so glad that you joined me. Have an awesome day, folks.